Assalamu alaikum. We're delighted to welcome in the studio with us today Atal Majid Rashid Saab, Imam of London Mosque. And we're going to take a view about how Jalsa is organized. We're going to talk about some of its administrative structure, but also give you a peek behind the scenes of what happens at a Jalsa Salana. Imam Saab, welcome. Imam Saab, if you could please tell us a little bit about the Jalsa Gah and how that's organized and some of the team and some of its remit, that would be good.
Well, the thing is that, first of all, let me say that Jalsa Salana is a very important institution established by the promised Messiah ﷺ in 1891. And then it has been a regular feature in the center, then shifted from Qadian to Rabwa, from Rabwa to London, and then to so many other countries of the world. And it's a very big institution. Main purpose and objective was the tarbiyat, and also, of course, tabligh. But having said that, I think if we come to the structure of the organization, and if I can speak on behalf of Jalsa Gah, that is my responsibility. This appears to be a small department. It's not a department, it's a full administration, and a lot of things are there which are part of this administration. Like, for example, Jalsa Salana dates are decided, it is announced, preparations they start right from the beginning. I mean, as soon as one Jalsa finishes, within a matter of 1 or 2 months at the most, the new dates are announced. The dates for the next Jalsa has already been announced. So immediately after Jalsa, we get together to prepare the red book points. What are the lapses, what we missed, what we ought to have done, and this and that. So that serves as a guidance for us throughout the year.
And the red book, the idea is about continuous improvement?
Continuous, of course.
Right.
The whole idea is that we should try to learn from our mishaps and mistakes, our omissions. So that is very good. Huzur is always emphasizing that we should maintain the red book and benefit from that. So in Jalsa Gah, we have this red book, and we start with that. Now comes the next stage of the preparation of the list of the speakers who are going to address.
Right.
And one thing I may mention, that everything that we do here, that is absolutely under the guidance and very benign, help and support of Hazrat Amirul Mu'mineen Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Aziz. At each and every step, we get the guidance.
Right.
And that is very important and full of blessings for us. We have a committee of the people. For example, I have the 6 Naib Afsaran Jalsa Gah. We hold a meeting of that. We prepare a long list of the speakers possible from UK and from abroad.
Right.
This Jalsa being universal Jalsa, Almi Jalsa, so we also try to get the speakers from outside. Then that list is presented to Huzur, along with the long list of topics divided into 7 different categories.
Right.
Because altogether there are 7 speeches. So in each category we propose at least 4 to 5 subjects. So the whole material is sent to Huzur. Then we are very fortunate that Huzur picks up the names of the speakers, and he picks up the title on which they have to speak, and sometime Huzur introduces a new subject of his own. Sometime he adds to the proposed subject. So this is the first step, how this thing is decided, that who is going to speak on what topic. Then further preparation is given immediately. They are notified and they start preparing. We also plan to who is going to stand in place of the speaker if for any reason the speaker is unable to come or to deliver the speech. Backup, alternative speakers. Their names are also approved by Huzur.
Right.
So we notify to both of them, the speakers and the alternative speakers, that both should be ready in case the other person may be asked to. And this is something very important in our history for last 30 years or so. I can recall that at least 3 times it has happened that for some reason the main speaker either was not available or was not able to deliver the speech himself. So then the other person has immediately to come in.
And could you tell us a little bit about how, for example, you would select someone to do nazm? or
yes.
someone to do
Yes.
tilawat? Because a lot of
That's
people have
another
asked
aspect,
us to phone in and said, how can we?
Yes, yes, of course, everybody is welcome.
Yes.
But there is a system established by Huzur. Just I have mentioned about the speeches, the tilawat and the nazam. Both these things are also selected in a process. Process is that first of all, we have to go for those portions of the Holy Quran and those portions of the poems which are going to be recited in the presence of Huzur. That is the most important thing. So Huzur has got his own thinking and plan of things, so he knows on what subject he is going to speak. So he then selects out of the lot of specimens that we present to him of tilawat and nazam, he selects that portion which is relevant to the subject on which he is going to speak. So tilawat and also the nazam.
Right.
So out of 30 each, for example, samples are sent to Huzur, and he selects 4 out of that, 3 for men's side and 1 for the ladies' side, because Huzur wants go on the second day to Lajna side to speak there. So there are 4 speeches delivered by Huzur.
Jazakallah.
So he gives us the guidance that these verses of the Holy Quran are going to be recited, and these verses of the poem have to be recited.
Right.
In the Holy Quran, of course, there are continuous verses.
Sure.
But in other poems, Huzur personally selects the verses which have to be recited.
Excellent. Jazakallah, Imam Sahib. If at this point I could welcome Nasir Khan Sahib, Afsar Jalsa Salana. Very welcome, warm welcome to you to our studio.
Assalamu alaikum.
Nasir Sahib, if you could give us a flavor of what it takes to put a Jalsa Salana together, give us an idea of some of the administrations within some of the teams and how those are put together, and give us an idea of the size and scale of behind the scenes.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. As you're probably aware, there's almost 5,000 volunteers that make this Jalsa the success that it is by the grace of God. And the preparation for this starts almost at the beginning or the end of the next one Jalsa. We start preparing for the next. So it is an ongoing process throughout the whole year. And our own Jalsa Salana teams, with the help of obviously Khidmat al-Khalq and Jalsa Gah, make up the workforce. Within Jalsa Salana itself, I have 10 naib officers, each with almost 10 nizamats amongst each of them. So we're 100 nizamats in Jalsa Salana. And this ranges from everything from obviously the langas, which in itself we've got 4 or 5 different langas now.
That's the food preparation.
That's the food preparation, absolutely. And of course we cater for all the different tastes and palates that come to Jalsa from different parts of the world. Some people like spices, others don't. So the foods also cater for the guests, and therefore those kitchens reflect that. Obviously the site itself needs to be prepared. As you know, we're sitting in the middle of a farm, in the middle of the Hampshire countryside. And to convert this from a fully functional farm into a convention center where almost 40,000 people can attend. There's washing facilities, shower facilities, there's overnight accommodation for them, the toilets, washrooms that have to be provided, and of course the bedding and mattresses. I mean, it's a huge logistical operation. And bringing people from the airports is also one huge departmental responsibility. And then, of course, we have trains. People thousands of people coming on the trains here, shuttling them to and from stations. We have buses that come from various parts of the country, indeed from various parts of Europe now, that attend Jalsa. So they all have to be catered for, their parking, their residence. So alhamdulillah, it's a logistical operation that over many years has developed, organically developed. By the grace of Allah, the people have grown up. Myself, of course, since Khalifa Rabi Rahmatullah was here, over 30 years of practicing Jalsa, if you like, and learning from our mistakes. And by now, alhamdulillah, almost all the departments now, the people have grown up in those departments, watching the mistakes. We make sure that we learn from our mistakes. And the red books that we will prepare, everybody knows, these enter all the difficulties that we've had and how we encounter them for future Jalsas. And when we take them all into account, then by the grace of God, then we're able to improve our efforts. But again, because it's a divinely inspired event, God's hand has always been on here, and you can see it. And I think if you speak to any of the volunteers, they will tell you their own personal experiences of how things from nowhere happen, just at the right time in the right place.
So Nasir, given that a lot of the people who are working, you mentioned over 5,000 volunteers, given that many of them wouldn't be their day job, they're volunteering their time, How do you ensure that we make the requisite standards? Because obviously we have to ensure the safety of our guests in all areas. So how is that done?
Well, first of all, you have to understand the UK has one of the highest standards in health and safety anywhere in the world. And of course, the planning restrictions here make sure that we don't break those laws. There's a 28-day rule that applies to the site. We have to turn this convention site back into a farm within the 28-day period. So that in itself presents logistical problems. And then each of our members has to go through certain training for their departments. For example, all the people that work in the langars, the food preparation areas, they all have to be trained to at least level 2 and some level 3 in food hygiene.
Food safety.
So that in itself is 300-400 people that have to be trained. The forklifting staff has to be trained in forklifting. And some of these are doctors, engineers. They're not necessarily, that's not their day jobs. They're from various different professions, and you'll go into the onion department who are just cutting onions all day long, and you'll see a doctor sitting there. I recently met a plastic surgeon who was working on the plumbing department. so we've got all sorts of people working dedicated to whatever task that they're given.
And also, could you give us an idea of some of the changes you've seen over the years, some of the new things we've introduced in the administrative and organizational structure?
Yes. I remember the first Jalsa going back to Mahmood Hall, so a few hundred people. So from that, we've come to this huge operation here, which is, as I said, almost 40,000 people, and that in itself is, which shows you the way the Jalsa has grown and how people have learnt the various trades, and we've learned, in fact, Allah has taught us how to do these things just simply by having the Khalifa here.
Right.
Just simply by having Hazur's presence. Our standards have automatically gone up because we all want to do the best, and we listen to his guidance, and always, alhamdulillah, that guidance turns out to be the right way to do things. So we have a very, very wonderful way of doing things, which starts right with Khalifatul Masih.
Jazakallah. And we have a very special guest here, Nadeem Sahib, I believe, from Belize Jamaat. Assalamu alaikum. Very warm welcome to you to Jalsa Salana UK. Can you tell us a little bit about the Jamaat and the gatherings that you're having in Belize, and are there any sort of gatherings you're setting up there as well?
By the grace of Allah, we have a delegation of 7 individuals who are visiting Jalsa Salana UK. We are very fortunate to be here and learn from the professionals, in particular the 2 people that we have here who are working here in the setup of Jalsa Salana UK for many years. We were fortunate enough to have our first Jalsa Salana of Belize just past January. And I guess God has blessed us with this occasion to learn how to take our Jalsa maybe one day to the same level that Jalsa UK is at, inshallah.
And how many people attended, incidentally, your Jalsa?
We had around 125 people.
MashaAllah. MashaAllah. Excellent. Excellent.
In the Jalsa, 125 people were there. I remember that when we started the first Jalsa in Japan, where I had the honor of serving for many years, there were only 10 or 12 people.
MashaAllah.
But we still laid the foundation of Jalsa Salana. Actually, the Jalsa Salana and the whole history of the Jamaat is like a seed. It's a very tiny seed which is sown, and then it flourishes and becomes a big tree. Jalsa Salana is just like that. It started in one place, and then it spread out in the centers and over and over everywhere. And now we see in, I think, hundreds of countries, they are having this Jalsa regularly in their own way. So it's like a process, ongoing process of development and expansion. That is in line with the revelation of the promised Messiah ﷺ, where Allah Almighty commanded him, "Wasse makanaka," that you go on expanding your house, your facilities, and that we see every year, particularly Jalsa Salana, every year when it takes place, there is always something new. Like for example, this year, the marquee size has been increased because of the increasing number of the people, and also I think on all other arrangements, some development, some new thing, some beautiful aspect of that is added to the arrangement. So that's a manifestation of this revelation that we have to expand our facilities.
If I could bring again our guest from Belize, Nadeem, give us an idea of what kind of Jalsa you put on there for the first time. and give us a flavor. Take us there, if you will, on a virtual journey. Tell us about your Jalsa experience.
In our Jalsa, we had Maulana Mubarak Nazir Sahib, who's a missionary in charge of Canada, along with Lal Khan Malik Sahib, Amir Sahib. They were there. Historically, this was the very first occasion where any of the Muslim sects were able to organize something. Never did it ever happen that in Belize, any of the communities belonging to Islam were able to have such gatherings. So Alhamdulillah, just like that, it became history. And the one thing that our mayor of the city noticed when he came, and obviously he also was here, attended last year Jalsa Salana. He was amazed by the youth that were helping the Khudam al-Ahmadiyya. Although we're very young as a Jamaat, but Alhamdulillah, our Khudam were very active in serving people.
Right. And I understand it's one of the most newly established Jamaats.
Hazur announced it last year, the 206th country to join Islam Ahmadiyyat. Yeah.
Tell us about some of the things you've seen here that you'll be taking back to Belize and inshallah incorporating.
I wish I could take everything. It's just amazing. But I guess slowly and surely we'll learn from your experiences.
Very good.
Our Jalsa is also very unique that not only men, Ansar, Khudam and Atfal, they take part, but also the ladies.
Yeah.
Ladies and young girls, they have separate Jalsa along with it. Huzur graces that occasion on the middle day. And they have got their own structure of the arrangements. From Jalsa Salana point of view and also from Jalsa Gah, they have their own programs, speeches are made there, and a lot of arrangements. They really go into detail to look after the need of all the participants.
Women, yes.
Like, for example, ladies having their children with them, what sort of food is to be there, where to go for the changing of the nappies and this and that, all arrangements are made there. And comfortable places for them, food is provided according to the need. So all these things are there. They have their own program.
Yes.
On the Saturday, in the morning 2 hours, their own speeches are there.
And are you involved in any of that, Imam Sahib?
Yes, because the tilawat and the nazam selection that is proposed by men's side,
Right.
Huzur, that is approval, then they are given. And then the ladies, just like the men, they ask various people to prepare their own CDs of tilawat and nazam.
Right.
And then if there is a committee of 4 or 5 members, they listen to all those cassettes and select some, say, 6, 7 or 8 outstanding people. And their cassettes are sent to Huzur.
So Imam Sahib, if anybody is listening and they're thinking, I would love to have my tilawat or nazam, they should send to London Mosque?
To London Mosque and to the office of the Jalsa Gah. And whenever the selection is made, we ask them to recite those verses or those verses of the Holy Quran or the verses of the poetry.
Right.
So those particular verses have to be recited, and then we compare who is the best.
I see.
And the best 7 or 8 people, their samples are sent to Huzur. Then Huzur decides who is going to recite a poem in his presence.
It's a very rigorous process.
Yes, quite right.
Excellent.
But most welcome. Nobody should feel that it's not beyond me, I can't do it. There is always, this year as well, we will see 1 or 2 such examples in the program that those people have never participated before, but their name is there.
So Nasir, if I could come to you for a moment, give us a flavor of what your day is like during Jalsa. Give us a day in the life of Jalsa
Not only
Salana.
days and nights,
and of course your team.
Yes. I think a lot of it depends on the weather. As you know, we're in the British weather. We're dependent on how that behaves on the day. By the grace of Allah, we're blessed today, and you can see the beautiful sunshine in the background, but it's not been like this, I can assure you, of those viewers in other parts of the world. We'd welcome the Belize weather here, but we've had a very unpredictable few days, and of course that in itself creates huge challenges for us. Because it's a farm, and although we lay track almost everywhere to try and mitigate the amount of mud and sludge that goes everywhere, but still it's very difficult to start putting up marquees and all the other things that need to be put in place before Jalsa. So and then once the guests are here, then you have to start worrying about making sure that they have hot water, the bedding is in place, the mattresses are in place, and we worry from morning till night.
Sure.
And all throughout the night. Sometimes they work. For example, we had some water issues. The water pressure was down, and you have to worry about things like this. In fact, we were concerned at one point that whether we would get any water here, we might have to bring water in. So we'd made arrangements with tankers as a backup, just in case there's a shortage of water. So sometimes you have to think on your feet. So the day varies,
Sure.
And the night varies, as Imam Sahib rightly says. But alhamdulillah, everybody, and Imam Sahib very rightly said, the ladies, they have a very, very dedicated team. When I mentioned the 5,000 people, that includes a large contingent of Lajna and young girls who help to run their side of things and make sure that although the main infrastructure we put in place, but they still have to make sure that people are looked after on the Lajna side, and it is effectively half of Jalsa. So all the members, I think, particularly in those departments, whereas maintenance, electricity, we have to provide electricity, as you can imagine, generators, hundreds of generators around the site. And there are other people that work in the background that you'll never ever see or understand.
Give us some examples.
For example, there's a whole team now working in Battle Futu and Fazl Mosque and Jamia, as you know, who are not here, and Islamabad,
yes.
who are all looking after the guests in those particular departments. Nobody knows what's going on there when they're sitting here in Jalsa. And that's a 7 days, 24 hours operation. And that will run when these 3 days are over. A lot of guests will go back to Battle Futu, for example. So for the next 10 days or so, there'll be a huge amount of activity around Battle Futu. So yeah, those are and there's a pot washing team that wash pots day and night. And as I mentioned, the onions, there's the potato people that will just sit there and cut potatoes, tons and tons of potatoes. The rice maker is making 9 tons of rice. Sure. It's just the numbers are huge, So I could go on. The young lads who wash the meat, the people who do the litter picking, the people who do the toilet cleaning, and each of them is doing it for the love of God and the love of the promised Messiah, and to make sure that the Khalifatul Masih's expectations of our Jamaat are not let down.
It's such a huge project as the Jalsa Salana. I think one point is very clear that by the grace of Allah, the divine help is always on our side. And that is one of the blessings of Khilafat. Because of the prayers of Huzur Ayyadahullah Ta'ala bin Aziz, always, I must repeat always, we see the signs of divine favors upon us. Nasir Sahib mentioned about the weather.
Sure.
Weather has created many times very big problems, especially when it's heavy rain. Then certainly situation goes sometime out of hand. But Alhamdulillah, I can say that during the last 30 years or so, we have never ever come across any situation where any work or development or any activity of Jalsa has been hampered by the rain. Rain comes, of course, it's a blessing of Allah Almighty, but if it comes too heavy, sometimes there are some difficulties. I remember in 1985, I think there was huge rain in Islamabad.
Right.
And the cars and the trucks and vans, everything, they were stuck in the mud. And so much so that Khalifatul Masih Rabi himself came out to buck up those people who were pushing those vans and buses out.
MashaAllah, Jazakallah.
This was something very great, historical.
Jazakallah, Imam Sahib. And Jazakallah to all our guests for coming on today. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, some great ideas, a great insight into behind the scenes of Jalsa Salana and how such a massive operation is put together. And indeed, Jalsa, the 3 days that you see here is neither the beginning nor is it the end. As you will see, as the Jalsa winds up on the 3rd day, the wind-up teams and all the structures come together to take down Jalsa and turn this city back into a farm that it is. Again, I would like to thank all my guests for coming today. And I believe next we're going to a Nazm. And thank you very much for joining us. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.